In Ecuador, the National Assembly approved a political trial against former Interior Minister Patricio Carrillo for failing to fulfill his duties. February 24th marks the first anniversary of Russia's special military operation in the Donbass region, reshaping World War trade, geopolitics, and social dynamics. And Palestinians protested the massacre in Nablus perpetrated by Israeli forces that left over 100 wounded and 11 dead. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada, and these are the news. Ecuador's National Assembly approved a political trial against former Interior Minister Patricio Carrillo for failing to fulfill his duties. With 105 votes in favor, the Ecuadorian legislature will bring Carrillo to trial for his inaction in the femicide case of Maria Belén Bernal, a young woman from Quito who was murdered inside a police school during the former minister's term. In addition, the Assembly also filed charges of citizen insecurity for the actions taken against demonstrators during the nationwide strike of 2022, which left 10 people dead. In this context, the parliament presented evidence of police brutality that led to Patricio Carrillo's impeachment, and the decision implied he would not be able to hold public office for 2 years. And the Anti-Corruption Parliamentary Front affirmed on Thursday that the president of Ecuador, Guillermo Lasso, knew about the filed report on drug trafficking. According to a group of the assembly members, the head of state was aware of the accusations mentioned in the document linking his brother-in-law, Danilo Carrera, and Rubén Cherres as the articulators of a criminal scheme. The parliamentarians have explained that 2 months after taking office as president, Guillermo Lasso received the police intelligence report with the data on the alleged Albanian mafia and its links with his friend Cherres and his brother-in-law Carrera. And the work schedule for the national elections is moving forward in Cuba. The candidates to the parliament are deployed in the communities, and the electoral body prepares the dynamic tests. The 470 nominated candidates maintain permanent meetings with the citizens. If elected this March 26, they have the duty to represent the whole society. According to the records of the National Electoral Council, 50% of the candidates for deputies were nominated and elected directly in their neighborhood councils. The National Assembly of People's Power is the supreme body of power of the Cuban state. That is why this democratic process is so important and is exercised with the utmost responsibility. On Friday, the national television began to provide information of biographies of the candidates. In Haiti, 4 people died on Friday following a shooting in the town of Fort Jacques, southeast of the capital, Port-au-Prince. According to a police source, armed men, allegedly members of a gang, started shooting at the local inhabitants for no reason, resulting in the death of 4 people, 2 of them from the same family. Another victim was a police agent of the security former president, Jocelyn Privert. Several people were also wounded in the attack. On the same day, 5 other deaths were reported in Morne, Hercules, and Carrefour, together with the kidnapping of 2 political figures. Human rights organizations know that gang violence has increased since the assassination of President Jovenel Moïse in July 2021, while the police are being overpowered by criminal gangs that terrorize communities. On Thursday, in the United States, a court order temporarily paralyzed the extradition of Peruvian former President Alejandro Toledo to Peru. The judge, Laurel Bauer, of the California State Court, decided that the suspension will be for 7 days or until there is a new ruling. The former president's defense will now seek a complete stay of the proceedings through a habeas corpus petition that must be resolved in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. Alejandro Toledo served as president of Peru from 2001 to 2006 and faces sentences of 20 years and 6 months for accepting bribes of $35 million million for the construction company Odebrecht. Likewise, he faces another accusation for which he would receive more than 16 years in prison. This one after a money trail was detected in offshore accounts in Panama and Costa Rica. And now we move on to other topics. The death toll from the storm that devastated the northern coast of Sao Paulo over the weekend reached 54, according to the toll released on Friday by the Civil Defense of the Brazilian state. Colonel Hengel Pereira stated that 53 deaths were reported in the city of São Sebastián and one in Ubatuba. Official reports also confirmed that 38 bodies were identified and released for burial. The victims are 13 men, 12 women, and 13 children. The other corpses are still awaiting expertise and identification. On the other hand, authorities also confirmed that about 30 people are still missing. 4 men, civil defense agents, and volunteers continue with uninterrupted searches, especially in neighborhoods on the south coast of São Sebastián, such as Vila Sahi, the area that concentrates most of the victims of the disaster, and Yuqueji. The United States government on Thursday gave its official report on the Ohio train derailment on early February, which so far has left over 45,000 animals dead, among other serious climatic consequences. The National Transportation Safety Board reported on Thursday that an overheating of the train's wheel bearing is what caused the accident. According to government experts, the vehicle never exceeded the speed limit, and even though the anomaly detector worked, it could not prevent the derailment. Authorities have also expressed that a final report will likely take between 12 and 18 months. On the same day, 5 environmentalists died on a plane crash while on their way to investigate the ecological disaster, and the former U.S. President Donald Trump arrived in the area, a visit which further highlights the absence of the President Joe Biden. Let's take a short break, but first, remember you can follow us on our TikTok account at TeleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. February 24th marks the first year of Russia's special military operation in the Donbass region. Before the armed conflict, Russia had denounced the United States and NATO for forcing the situation in Ukraine and undermining territorial security by increasing its military presence in several countries bordering the Eurasian country. A year ago, the Russian president announced the decision to launch this special military operation to demilitarize and denazify Ukraine. We stay on topic. Addressing the United Nations Security Council 1 year after the beginning of the conflict in Ukraine, Secretary General Antonio Guterres highlighted the UN is committed to remove the remaining obstacles to Russia's food and fertilizer exports, including ammonia.
Firmly committed to working to remove remaining obstacles to Russian food and fertilizer exports, including ammonia. These exports are essential to our broader efforts to bring down prices and this food insecurity around the globe. Both efforts demonstrate that international cooperation is essential, valuable, and possible, even in the midst of conflict.
Meanwhile, Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba referred to a resolution approved by the United Nations regarding the situation in the country.
General Assembly has just passed a resolution on the principles of comprehensive, just, and lasting peace in Ukraine. 141 member states took the side of the UN Charter, while 7 took the side of Russia. No additional explanations are required here. The resolution follows the logic of President Zelensky's peace formula. The goal of this 10-point plan is to restore respect for Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity within its internationally recognized borders.
And February 24th marks the first anniversary of Russia's special military operation in Ukraine, a conflict that shaped 2022's political landscape and therefore the economy as well as social dynamics. To go on this issue, we now invite political analyst Luz Rodriguez. Be welcome to From the South, Luz.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on.
Yes, so we have a first question for you. Recently, NATO's top official Jens Stoltenberg offered statements speculating about China's aid to Russia during the conflict, but those are unchecked remarks. On the other hand, European leaders and the US president visited Kiev to mark the first year of the conflict. Finland, Poland and Germany sent Leopard tanks to Ukraine, and they pledged more support. This is not only a double standard discourse regarding the conflict, but also a direct way to include China as an enemy in the confrontations narrative. A year after, what is this objective? What is the objective of this?
Well, as you said, it is definitely a double standard. As we can kind of see from the West and from the United States, there is a constant push to thankful the war effort. While there have been chances to call for peace, instead of calling for peace, we continue to basically throw money at the problem. Meanwhile, countries like China are actually offering openings for discussion. And that is something that we just can't do, mostly because it is profitable here. Four military contractors in Raytheon and Boeing are making billions of dollars. And as we continue to send military aid, we sink ourselves deeper into the conflict. And so right now, the only people that are benefiting from the conflict are U.S. military contractors, are the U.S. government. Ukrainians aren't benefiting, Russians aren't benefiting. And while other countries are trying to, towards the path to peace, to open up a place for negotiation, is key to bring money up the problem, sending more weapons. And a conflict that the American people had no decision in entering.
Also, back in February 2022, the U.S. promised not to intervene in the conflict, but in the name of peace, it has supplied Ukraine not only with billionaire aid packages, but also with armament, and President Biden has openly championed Volodymyr Zelensky. This support has taken a heavy toll on the Biden's administration because of domestic economy underperformance and the rise in inflation also. So how could this impact Biden's presidential race ahead of the 2024 elections?
I mean, as it looks very unpopular, he has not really followed up any campaign promises, and he did kind of through proxies is just making things worse. And although there is a little confusion, I think here amongst kind of the average person about why the economy is doing so poorly, when you look at the global economy, it's fairly obvious, right? The global supply chains are messed up. Oil isn't going where it needs to go. As soon as the war started and we applied sanctions onto Russia, as well as Belarus, we immediately start seeing inflation. And I don't think this is going to really bode well for Biden's presidential campaign. However, I don't think that he is particularly popular already as a kind of front-running candidate, right? And this is a long-running problem. While we're often promised peace, especially from Democratic candidates, before the election, after the election, when the president is actually sitting in power, we see very similar foreign policy to, their conservative counterpart, which is just funding war, really no matter the cost. And it makes sense. Both Republicans and candidates are backed and funded by military contractors. But I don't think it's popular, and I think considering how close the last election was, it's kind of really irresponsible kind of political behavior is going to impact the campaign and open up a space for yet another far right politician to take the presidency when the next election cycle comes around.
And also, 1 year ago, when the conflict broke out, Western countries imposed sanctions on Russia in the hopes of shocking its economy. However, high inflation, fuel shortages, and food supply disruptions are straining the U.S. and the EU, and also prompting protests, demanding payments that cope with the high cost of living. All of that just 1 year after the conflict. The underbelly of this situation is a reshuffle of trade systems worldwide, especially in the eastern countries. So how have smaller economies changed after this?
Well, as we continue to, or as the United States continues to sanction kind of a siege tactic as a kind of soft power, we're starting to see that it's not as powerful as they used to be, right? When the United States placed sanctions on Iraq over 20 years ago, the country collapsed. But now a lot of countries are just not, they don't have the patience to deal with it anymore. They don't have the patience to deal with global war all the time. That for the first time, we're seeing smaller countries and just, countries in the global south like India start using other forms of currency other than the US dollar to do global business because they can't afford to pause their economy at the behest of what our government is asking, which is for them to basically take sides in wars they had nothing to do with. So it is a very interesting development to see how smaller countries and how the global economy will start to shift, especially as kind of the U.S.'s power to apply sanctions and to as a kind of a blackmail tactic to force other countries to do what they want. As that power weakens, we see countries like China, countries like India, even places in Latin America as well, start to find ways around these kind of economic blocks so that they can continue to do business and they can continue to feed their own people and run their own economies for the benefit of their own.
So thanks, Luz, for your time hearing from the South.
Thank you so much, all.
Okay, so like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and also all our socials in TikTok. From TeleSUR English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.